She's the former kindergarten teacher who still flashed a friendly smile as she entered a courtroom handcuffed, accused of grooming and being a sexual predator. This is video per WYFF-TV.
Don't keep something quiet because of someone else.
Her alleged victim has stood before cameras talking about what she allegedly did to him, and now that victim is taking their fight a step further as the woman who allegedly preyed on him is believed to reportedly be expecting to give birth to another child. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey guys, thanks so much for following this case with us. We're able to bring you this story because of our partner, Morgan & Morgan. There's a reason why On the Case is one of the top true crime shows on YouTube, and there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For more than 35 years, they've been fighting for the people and have recovered more than $30 billion for their clients. And the proof's in their track record. With more than 1,000 lawyers across 100 offices nationwide, hiring Morgan & Morgan is like hiring an army to go into battle for you, a team that will fight hard to get their clients the compensation they deserve. Not all law firms are the same. You hire the wrong one, you may be beat before you even start. So if you are ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan, and their fee is free unless you win. For more information, you can go to forthepeople.com/OTC, click the link below, or scan the QR code on your screen. The woman at the center of this story was not just a teacher in charge of very young children. She was also a local theater director, and she's accused of using that position of power to prey on a boy who just wanted to be part of a show. The teacher we're talking about is Nicole Callaham. Here she is entering a courtroom back in July. Her hands were cuffed and her future still very much at risk of whether or not she'll spend time in prison, but she still flashed a smile. The same smile she probably gave students, but this time that smile was flashed at a judge. This video per WYFF-TV. Now here is Nicole Callaham at her wedding. She has a daughter who's believed to be a toddler, and not only was she a married mother, as this case is playing out, her attorney told the court she was also pregnant.
She's pregnant now. She's pregnant now and due in January, February of 2026. She's got a master's from USC. She's got a bachelor's from Anderson University. She's been raised in Anderson County. Her grandparents, her parents, grandparents, all her family live here in Anderson County. She has no criminal history, no violent behavior. She's been in the theater for decades.
Now, that was part of the argument that got her a bond where she was able to make that bond, and she's been out of jail as this case has played out. Her alleged victim has not hidden. He has gone public with how Callaham allegedly impacted his life. He and his family are now taking things a step further, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But before we get to that point, I want to break down, frankly, the disgusting allegations against Nicole Callaham. And again, don't let that smile fool you. This woman is accused of preying on a young person. Callaham worked as a public school kindergarten teacher in Anderson, South Carolina. And she seems to have been the kind of teacher that really wanted to have a positive impact on students, or at least she gave off that kind of vibe. She wanted to be a fixture in the community. Here she is dancing in a classroom as she auditioned for a local talent show. This video was posted on social media. Now, Nikki also used to be a musical theater director for a local playhouse in town. And on Facebook, that playhouse describes itself as a place that produces multiple theatrical productions each school year, fostering confidence and creativity. Now, according to the victim's family in this case, it's at that playhouse where the alleged abuse began in 2021. The victim's family says their 14-year-old son auditioned for a role in the musical production of Legally Blonde. The victim's mom said Nicole Callaham gave her son a part in the show. Here's the flyer for the show that's on Facebook. And Nicole really seemed like the kind of person that people could trust. I mean, you look at this Facebook post and you can see this was for a production of Legally Blonde back in 2021. And there's another mom, not one connected to the allegations in this story, but she wrote that Nicole, quote, inspires her. Now, it was during that production that authorities say the sexual abuse first began, where Nicole allegedly started blurring the lines and going beyond just teaching and coaching, but picking the victim up from rehearsals. The victim's mom says that Nicole's daughter was a toddler, and Nicole told the victim's family that she was having marriage issues and problems with her sister and mom, so the family of the victim took her in. But allegedly beneath the surface, she was sexually abusing that young boy. Now, eventually, the mom told a judge that they figured out that Nikki was reportedly being inappropriate with their son, and that's when they told her to back off, but she allegedly didn't. Nikki changed her social media to be able to continue to communicate with the boy, the family says, and the boy's mom claims that she even bought an Xbox so she could talk to the boy while he was playing video games. Now, what's even more frankly sick and twisted is that the boy's mom claims in court that Nikki's toddler daughter was allegedly there during sexual encounters that Nikki had with this boy, who is now 18 years old.
All right, state your name for me, ma'am.
Nicole Callaham.
Now, here was Nikki's first court appearance in a video from Upstate News Today. The outlet streamed this hearing live on Facebook. Now, originally, Nikki was facing 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor and a charge of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. But on top of that, she was charged in a separate county in Greenville, South Carolina, with 8 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor and 4 counts of unlawful conduct towards a child. Now, it's understandable in these cases when a victim and their family do not want to go public. They don't want their names out there. They don't want to be associated with the accusations of an alleged sexual predator. But in this case, the victim's mom stood at the podium and made a statement in court as Callaham watched from jail.
I am learning that her daughter was present during some of the abusive incidents, which is another level of sick, demented behavior Nikki exhibited and somehow kept hidden from us. But in a text conversation about me not being able to be fake, Nikki texted me, she is a good actress and those skills come in handy. So those are our answers to how she led a double life, masked as a mentor of young, impressionable children, kindergarten teacher and mother of a little girl, just trying to get through an unfair season of her life to in reality being sick, twisted, calculating sex offender.
Then, after a court hearing involving Nicole Callaham, we actually heard from the alleged victim. He stood before cameras and made this statement.
I think all I really want the public to know is that though it's a traumatic event, I'm here to fight and I'm not going to back down. And that I think more awareness needs to be brought to things like this, and just because I'm a man doesn't mean that it should be shunned away. Because I was a child, I wasn't a man, I was a boy, and yeah, that's pretty much what I want them to know.
And how has that affected you over the past couple of years?
It's made me come to realize that I had to grow up very, very fast and get on a whole nother maturity level that I was never ready for and shouldn't have had to been. Yeah.
And how do you move forward from today?
Now, Callaham resigned as a teacher in May of last year. This is the document from the State Board of Education taking emergency action to revoke her teaching license based on the allegations in this case. On top of that, there have been a lot of new developments in this case. Callaham is currently out on bond as this case continues, and it's unclear what the outcome of her pregnancy is. It was roughly 8 months ago. Her attorney told the court that she was expecting a child. Now, court records show that she filed a motion to modify her bond on March 27th, 2026, in this case, out of Greenville County, South Carolina, where she is facing those 8 counts. The case in Anderson, South Carolina's most recent docket entry shows that she was indicted in November of last year. And now there's a new lawsuit that was just filed, according to Fox Carolina, on behalf of the victim in this case. So this lawsuit names 3 entities. One is Anderson School District number 5. That's the public system where Callaham used to work. Also named in the suit is the local theater production called Project Challenge Playhouse. Then there's a boarding school, the South Carolina Governor's School, this boarding school for the arts located in Greenville. They are also named in this lawsuit. The suit allegedly claims that the victim boarded at that school, and the school allowed Callaham to allegedly check the victim out of the dorms. The suit claims the theater production is where Callaham groomed the victim. Now, that public school district is named because the suit alleges the district should have known about the inappropriate actions of Callaham and claims they are negligent because of it. To this point, the entities that have been named in this lawsuit have not commented on it. The South Carolina Governor's School for Arts and Humanities did provide us with this statement saying, quote, at the SC Governor's School, For the arts and humanities, the safety and well-being of our students is our highest priority. We have comprehensive safety protocols and procedures in place to protect students to the best of our ability. On campus, this includes a 24/7 campus surveillance system and a fully staffed public safety team with certified law enforcement officers and security officers who are on campus at all times. This team greets and identifies every visitor that comes to campus at our front gatehouse. Students can only be checked out by individuals who are pre-approved by parents or guardians, and they are required to show identification upon arrival. If students choose to go downtown, they may do so during certain hours after signing out, and they must be accompanied by another governor's school student. When downtown, they are required to stay within designated boundaries. Our public safety team patrols downtown to monitor student activity and to be available for students in the event of a safety issue. This system helps to ensure student accountability and safety at all times. The governor's school is fully committed to providing a secure, structured, and supportive environment for every student. Joining us now to talk more about this case is Tyler Bailey, criminal defense attorney, civil rights attorney from South Carolina. Great to have you with us on this case. Very disturbing allegations, certainly on the criminal side, against Nicole Callaham, this teacher. But now we're seeing a lawsuit from the victim and his family reportedly. Looking at the different entities that have been named in this lawsuit, the public school, a boarding school that he allegedly attended, and then you have this theater production group that she was part of. I guess starting with the public school, that's not where the sexual abuse is alleged to have occurred. She worked there at a period of time. What is the bar that you have to really meet if you are going to be successful in a civil case like this, saying that this group was negligent, that they should have known that she was doing inappropriate conduct, allegedly?
So for the public school, they're going to have to show the school was grossly negligent in that they knew or should have known that she was either committing these acts, or she, based off the signs that were going on, that was likely that she could have been doing that and harming a minor here. And the allegations go to the grooming, right? Because she was checking out of school, meeting him, taking him different places. It went from school to school to school, or school to entity, showing that she had this propensity and she was, taking time, using effort, going to different institutions to check out a minor child that she's not related to. And there, so pretty much to say there's red flags that could have been caught if people were paying attention. And this young person who's now 18 would have been a lot better off and would have been a victim to these crimes.
Because I think of the theater production group, and that's where she was this theater director, and where he ends up getting a role in a play, and then it seems like that's where the allegations say that she groomed him and then sexually abused him. At the same time, like for these groups that have been named, I think some people could look and say that she didn't have a criminal record, she was active in the community. How could they have known that she was capable of something that's just, so horrific with what she's accused of?
There are red flags that could be there. So if she's not related to the victim here, and she's spending so much time with him, and maybe she could have been making off-color jokes. It could have been, she could have been making comments to her colleagues about his appearance. She could have had him at odd hours. And so you have to ask yourself as a higher up, whether you're at the administrative level or at superintendent level, or you're the executive at some of these entities, why is an adult spending this much time? And at least investigate it. And so just because somebody's active in the community, they're upstanding, doesn't mean they have propensity to do illicit things. And it's up to these institutions to not turn a blind eye and look into it, and not just assume that there's nothing sinister going on here, because that's a lot of times where problems go to fester. And you see this grooming is alleged to have taken place over many years, and now it's just being exposed.
As a civil attorney, I mean, how do you gain access to the information that you'll need from, maybe it's the public school, maybe it's this private school that's also named in it, where, I'm sure they're not, maybe on the criminal side, they're certainly cooperating. Like, how do you get that cooperation on the civil side from them, if they're trying to protect themselves from what a lawsuit's going after?
The first thing is the civil attorney and the attorney for the victim here knows probably a lot more information that's out there. So they had their intake, and so she knows how many times likely this happened, where the Callaham was employed at, what hours she would go see the victim. So that's information that they get, and they do conduct discovery later on. They can send requests to the schools to get their hours, employment reviews, video surveillance footage. You can issue subpoenas. So you build the case based off the information that you know. And then they'll be able to take depositions of her coworkers, of her bosses, to ask questions. They can take depositions of, for example, the owner or the principal of the theater company, to ask questions. Why didn't you ask when Callaham would take the victim, at odd hours, just if that's in facts, they get that information. So there'll be ways they can use discovery tools to get more information, to get hard evidence that there was some negligence here.
We'll talk about the criminal side in a moment. She is facing, at this point, charges in 2 counties. She's been indicted in 1. That was in November of last year. That was the last entry in the docket on that particular case. And then in the one in Greenville, South Carolina, she wanted her bond conditions modified. We're still working the specifics on that in March. What goes into the timing? And because we do see a lot of cases like this, what goes into the timing on the civil side of when you file a lawsuit, even in this case, which is still ongoing?
A lot of times, especially when you deal with minors, they may not be ready emotionally. The parents, the families may not be ready. And you have a certain amount of years to do so. If you're a child, it's something happened when you're minor. In South Carolina, you at least get 6 years on sexual abuse after the incident, after they reach the age of majority, which is 18. So there's some time to do so. And you do want to file early, but you want to file a lot of times when the information's out there. Having criminal charges almost helps set your civil case apart, because you have another court or court system that has validated the allegations, because the standard of proof is a lot higher in a criminal setting, beyond a reasonable doubt, than the circumstantial evidence that can be used in the civil case, where more likely than not, 51% versus essentially 99%. So they can use that information from the criminal case that can be public information through FOIA, and use that as the basis of the civil lawsuit. So a lot of times you see them go hand in hand, either they're filed shortly after criminal charges have already been initiated, or shortly after that.
Nicole Callaham has pleaded not guilty to the charges that she's facing. She's, now this civil suit is ongoing for these other groups. How does the criminal trial and how that plays out? I mean, we don't know all the evidence in this case. Maybe there's, if somehow it comes out that she is not guilty of these charges, how does that end up impacting the civil case? Do you need the conviction in the criminal for that civil to be successful in any way?
Well, it certainly helps to have a criminal conviction or a guilty plea. You don't need it, because the standards of proof are different, and you have different people or entities who are named here. The civil case is really naming those institutions that she was either affiliated with, or she was able to I guess, take the minor from them and to commit these crimes. The criminal case, she's on the other side of that V. It's the state versus her. And so if she's found not guilty somehow, that does not make the civil case go away. There's still some liability there likely, but it helps. If you have a guilty plea, it almost solidifies one fact that it happened. And you still have the benefit of there would not have been criminal charges even pressed against her if there wasn't enough there. So that helps out the civil case too.
And if she is guilty of these crimes, it's horrific. And she certainly has had an impact, if guilty, on this young person that could last the rest of his life. But in a civil case like this, how do you quantify the amount of money that you're going for at a school district, at a theater group like in this one? How do you quantify that?
Well, you want to know how much money is out there for the clients. They're going to need it. There's really no amount of money, if you ask me, that could take up for being sexually abused. That's something that can weigh on somebody their entire life. It impacts their relationships with their partners later on in life, and their children, if they want to have children. It makes them also question themselves. So there's really no amount of money that you can put on something like that. But it's really looking at the availability of money that's out there, whether that's insurance policies or balance sheets, or assets that an entity has that can be used to help make that person whole. And it's only a part of it because there's going to be probably a lifetime of therapy and other emotional harm from being a victim of a sexual crime like this.
And looking at this case, and there's two cases it seems right now, because you have she's accused of sexual abuse in Greenville, South Carolina, and then in Anderson, South Carolina. To our understanding, we're talking about the same alleged victim in these cases. How likely is it that this could be combined into one trial? Or is it something in South Carolina where, Anderson will have their case that plays out and then Greenville will have their case that plays out?
I don't see them being combined into one trial because right here you have a system that's saying that we're not going to turn a blind eye to crime under our purview. So if she committed 8 acts of sexual abuse in Greenville, then Greenville will charge her for those. In Anderson, how many times she did it there, she's going to be charged there. And more likely than not, I don't see this thing going to trial. I think she'll probably have to take a plea because the facts are probably going to be there. And it would be, if she's convicted, the penalties that she would receive would be high. More than likely, what you'll see is a situation where she enters into a global plea, where that she resolves all of her charges in both counties in one plea. But I don't see this being a situation in any event where the charges are consolidated into one trial, where she's being tried before one jury on both county charges. You could have a situation where she goes to trial on one, maybe she's successful, and then she goes to trial on the other, could be found guilty, or vice versa.
Yeah, and because she's also, and I don't know if she's had the baby yet, but she's pregnant, or was. 8 months ago was, I think, the last time we covered this story, and her attorney had said that she was expecting a child. So I don't know the status of that. But does that have any impact on any of this? The fact that she was expecting, or maybe is a new mom when someone's facing this, how does that impact some of these cases and how they go?
It's a mitigating fact. So I think it's something the jury would consider, the judge would consider in a plea. If she's entering into a plea of guilty on this, her defense lawyer will say that she's a young mother and she has a child at home that's going to need their mother in their life. And that's a fact that the judge could consider when deciding how much time is appropriate, whether probation can be appropriate, because you don't want to have a situation where children are, left out there without a parent. But that's just a system that we have. People have children every day. And if people commit crimes, they have to face justice for their own acts. And judges have to balance the scales. And they do consider facts that aren't really absolutely relevant to that individual. But the child being out there could be something that could just influence how a judge could enter into a penalty here.
And based on what she's accused of, how likely is it that she would be seeing some pretty serious prison time if she was found guilty?
I think she's going to see some time. I think that you can't deny that if the allegations were different, this was a man, a lot of times you often see higher penalties. But she's not going to just get a slap on the wrist. And it seems like these cases are happening more frequently. We're hearing about more and more across the country. And I think the more that judges are hearing about them, the public is hearing about them, you're going to see that disparity of the sentences get narrowed. And I do think there's going to be a message here. And one fact that leads me to believe that is the charges in Greenville County and Anderson County. You didn't have one jurisdiction say, well, she's been charged over here, so let's not even pursue it. Let's focus on other cases. They charged her for each count. They didn't leave any off. They didn't give one count and say, we're not going to prosecute the other. They gave her 8 counts, and I believe in Greenville, and she has her other in Anderson. So I think what I'm reading from the tea leaves are that the prosecutor's office, they're serious about this. They're probably going to ask the judge for a high penalty, and we'll see what happens if she does plead guilty, what that penalty looks like.
Because on top of that too, you have this case where the victim spoke, the alleged victim spoke to reporters outside after a court hearing and talked about the impact it had on his life. His mom made a statement in court as well. And I totally understand why in so many of these cases, the victim and their family, they don't want to be in front of cameras. They don't want their names out there. But in this case, how does that impact how this could go, that you have a victim that's saying, I'm very, very willing to talk about this?
I think it goes a long way because that means that they're going to be involved in every aspect of the case, whether it's a motion for a bond modification, whether it's a sentencing at a plea, or if it's being a witness in the trial. So having victims who are not scared to tell their story, and let me retract that word being scared, who are willing to tell their story, because victims should not have to, they don't want to speak, they shouldn't be required to speak. But if they're willing to tell their story, it really helps the message change, because it helps those involved to remember that there's an individual here who's suffering, who's not named in the pleadings. It's not the state and victim versus the defendant. It's the state versus the defendant. And it makes those who are playing a role understand that this is somebody's life who has been upended. And we need to consider that in plea negotiations, how we zealously prosecute it, how it's being defended, and if a judge is going to hear it for a plea, how that sentence should be factoring in the healing and justice for the victims too.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens next. Certainly horrific allegations. In this case, we'll see how the civil side of it plays out as well. Tyler Bailey, always great to have you here on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. See you next time.